Hey everyone, this is Tatsu. How are you doing? I'm just I'm in between phone calls, so thought I'd pop in and try to do a little presentation on why you should unlike the New York Times. So for some reason, I remembered in January of 30 of 2016 when the New York Times endorsed Hillary Clinton over Bernie Sanders, and that moment where I pretty much saw, a line in the sand. Um, I knew I was no longer ever going to be with the Democratic Party or sort of share camaraderie with the self-identified liberal class. So if we, look at this um, article, and it's an ironic one to look at now, a year after the nomination process, but Democratic Socialist has proved to be more formidable than most people. In the end, though, Mr. Sanders does not have the breadth of experience or policy ideas that Mrs. Clinton offers. His boldest proposals to break up the banks and to start all over on healthcare reform with a Medicare for all system have earned him support among the alienated middle class voters and young people. But his plans for achieving them aren't realistic, while Mrs. Clinton has very good and achievable proposals in both areas. September, where the editorial board endorses Hillary Clinton. Not very interesting to read. The running down the other guy won't suffice to make that argument. The best case for Hillary Clinton cannot be, and is not, that she isn't Donald Trump. Now, we know that's not true, and the irony of it is that most people still tend to read the New York Times. Most people tend to rely upon not just its ability to find, uh, but for guidance, for the propagandist message. And when I saw that endorsement last year, January 30th, again, I realized what I had been reading, what I had admired about the New York Times, um, the, the the institution was pretty much a lie. Um, and for a while, I was in the wilderness of, trying to find trustworthy news sources. And which brings us today. What is a trustworthy news source, a reliable news source? And why should you not read the New York Times? Why should you not read the Washington Post? I'm really talking to my colleagues and fans of Real Progressives. I'm hoping that you'll see this video and maybe you'll share it to a friend who thinks that the New York Times is neutral and objective when obviously they're anything but. Same goes for the Washington Post. Same goes for CNN, for that matter, or MSNBC, or anything on the commercial airwaves. But the newspapers are supposed to be, in this day and age, objective and neutral. And now we know there's nothing nothing of the sort existed. And what I'm sort of starting to realize is that the airs of objectivity and neutrality in themselves are a lie. There is no such thing. You either, and so what is the bias here? I want to give you a little analysis in terms of what can you say to somebody who reads these outlets. Let's go to Vox. There's an Ezra Klein. I want to admit, talented politician by Ezra Klein, and I threw up in my mouth quite a bit all throughout the season where they did these special video interviews with Hillary, and yeah, it was terrible. So here's what's going around now today, and I'm sure you've probably seen it. I was able to hunt down the one of the original sources here. This is actually republished by Infowars, believe it or not, which is definitely a source. So take a look at the X and Y axes here. We have sensational or clickbait all the way to quote unquote complex. And so that is the y-axis, journalistic quality. Over on the x-axis, we have liberal to conservative. And this graphic purports to guide readers as to what can you trust, what is the bias, whether it be political or factual. So, facts-based being the y-axis and political bias being on the x, right? That nice sweet spot in the middle of, let's blow this up here, NPR, the New York Times, and I don't listen to NPR anymore, BBC, which is really just the New York Times. Well, it's not really the New York Times. I would say the Guardian would be the New York Times of England. Washington Post, major news networks, AP and Reuters. Now, AP and Reuters, for the most part, they do tend to stick to the facts. They are kind of the C-SPAN print media. However, let's not forget, colluded with the Clinton campaign a day before she officially, quote-unquote, mathematically cinched the nomination over Bernie Sanders. I'm sure you remember the secret win graphic that was emailed to everyone from the Hillary campaign. Above that, if you're a coastal elite, want to be armchair intellectual, you can go to Atlantic, Slate, Guardian. I don't see Politico on here. Everybody wants to be mainstream, right? You don't want to be liberal. You don't want to be conservative. Unfortunately, the election season did come from these bizarre websites, Infowars, Breitbart, Daily Caller. They called out Hillary on Clinton Foundation, WikiLeaks. They were the only ones reporting it. CNN did not. They actually had the news, and they didn't actually spin it that much. I mean, the news was so horrific that they didn't have to. Just the facts alone were that bad. Now, over to our left, we're looking at MSNBC, the Huffington Post. Let me tell you a story about the Huffington Post. So, before I started writing Medium articles, I'm just going to switch to my face so that you get an idea of what I'm talking about. Before I started writing Medium articles and live streaming, I was an aspiring Huffington Post contributor. I never made it, and I'm glad I didn't, because let me tell you why. When you're a contributor to the Huffington Post, not a lot of people know this, but your reach in terms of SEO, or the ability to search Google and find it on the internet is practically zero. So if if you're even moderately progressive, which the Huffington Post purports itself to be, your articles, your hard work will never be found unless you share it out yourself, to your friends, and so your voice won't get heard. You're given the illusion that you're a powerful media person on the internet, but nothing could be further from the truth. Now, I don't want to take too much time to analyze, the subterfuge, the co-opting of voices, media ecosphere, and what I really mean to say here, that this graphic is a big fat wild goose chase to nowhere. This doesn't represent the true nature of media at all. It is simply a piece of propaganda, a piece of appeal to personality, and let me switch to that graphic again. An appeal to your own echo chamber. So it reinforces the notion that all of us must remain in our silos. We must not reach out to people on the left or to the right of us. It's good to be in the middle. It's good to be sheepdogged into believing these lies. And what are these lies in the end? Well, it is this. It is the illusion of choice. And this is a very nice graphic that came out, I think, fairly recently. But this tells us what we have known for decades. And the media has never been more consolidated. 6 media giants now control a staggering 90% of what we read, watch, or listen to. Now, I became aware of the consolidation of media, and we're talking corporate consolidation. A lot of people still don't get this message that the problem with the politics in this country and the entire world is the neoliberal privatization of government services, and now also, not now, the media. So we're looking at GE, Fox News Corp, Disney, Viacom, which includes properties such as MTV, BET, Paramount Pictures, there are so I don't know if you watch movies. I like to watch movies as an escape. Steven Mnuchin is a pretty serious movie producer. His name on the movies that you like are at the end titles of many of them. Steve Bannon, somebody that your friends are probably deathly afraid of. He's he actually worked for Goldman Sachs, but when he was offered the opportunity to buy a besieged, not performing well media company, because he was working for Goldman Sachs as a consultant to turnaround specialist for media companies. He bought it, and that's how he got his start in media, and that's how he ended up in Breitbart. This is the way it goes, ladies and gentlemen. And let's go back. This is not real. All of this here, these companies are liberal spin, conservative spin. It doesn't matter. What matters is that when I was growing up, something like, wow, 9 companies own 50% of the media. And so when it comes to media, when it comes to wealth inequality, it's all being consolidated. It's all going to the top. And this is just, not true in media. But let me tell you something my friend David Dellinger told me when I was a young, aspiring activist. In the 90s, he used to decry the triumph of capitalism over communism in this fashion. And what he told me was during the Reagan era, during the fall of communism, the United States saw a doubling of millionaires and a tripling of homeless people. And that was just in the 90s. And the mantra we have today that the 1% own, 90% of the wealth, or the 0.1%. I don't even know what it is. But we used to say back in the 90s, David and I, that 10% own all the wealth in the country. It was back in the 90s. And now it is the 0.01%. So that's pretty much my presentation on corporate power, the media, wealth inequality, and the like. You can see they follow very parallel tracks, and I hope you can share this with your friends. I hope you can sort of shed some light to them on why the polemics around media aren't about liberal bias or conservative bias. There's bias in all media. It's just that's not the point. The point is follow the money, see who owns them, see what their agenda is. And yes, on an everyday basis, they're not going to be outright propagandists, but in key critical moments, when you have the New York Times, and again, let's go back to the beginning. When you have the New York Times editorial board stepping in, and this voice here at the editorial board is much more important and widely heard than the reporting group, standing up for Hillary Clinton, stomping down on Bernie Sanders, then you know exactly what they are, and they are the establishment. So I'm gonna close out. It was just a little rant. I haven't done this for a very long time because I've been working very hard on management and technology here at RP, so I haven't had the opportunity to live stream very often. All right. It was great to join with you this afternoon. I know it was kind of sudden, and this stream is on Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope. So whatever platform you prefer, you can find it there. All right. I'll talk to you guys later.